Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's weekly market update for the week of December 31st, 2016. Now, it's our final video of the year, which means it has to be, of course, our year-end review. And what we'll be talking about today is a look at the year gone by, 2016. There's been many changes. We've all lived through them. We've all seen them. We'll be talking about a summary of what's been happening in our market. And of course, you'll notice we use a series of emojis going from smiling to shock to questioning. So we'll be talking about all of those emotions we've all gone through, as well as, of course, as always, more for traditional numbers, looking at what's really transpired over the last 11 months, some of the increases and even some decreases. So we hope you stick with us. That's all coming up right next. 2016 was quite the incredible year. So many stores we've talked about in these videos. We've seen them online. And so what I thought we'd do for this final farewell video for 2016 is that we go over very quickly in a high level all of the media headlines we've seen over the last 12 months. Now, if you have any specific questions about these topics, please do get in touch with me. You can do so by calling or texting the number that is appearing right here below. And right after we talk about these 12 months of headlines, we'll also quickly go over just 3 slides talking about the prices increases and where we see the market headed. So here we go. Now, in January, we saw BC Assessments announcing a 17% shocking property value increase based on their assessment. Now, that's a huge number. Last year, we saw 9%. So these are 2 massive numbers in consecutive years. February, we saw the big term shadow flipping coming up. Now, that referred to some unethical members of the real estate industry using duties as fiduciaries and misleading the public, and essentially buying properties, flipping them before they complete for a profit, and essentially that drove up prices to a certain degree. So we saw the term shadow flipping introduced and actions taken against those unscrupulous realtors and those brokerages. We also saw the provincial government announcing the new budget. With that came new down payment rules, which meant that if you are purchasing a property over $500,000, the minimum down payment on that portion over $500,000 has to be 10%, no longer 5%. And with a budget came also an increase in property transfer tax for any property purchased above $2 million. And finally, a new exemption with the property transfer tax. If you're buying a brand new property, you're now exempt from the property transfer tax, regardless of whether you're a first-time home buyer or not, for a purchase price up to $750,000. In March, we saw new rules imposed on realtors, again referring back to shadow flipping. So essentially, realtors can no longer flip properties for profit. It's been made essentially impossible. It was also the hottest month of the year all time for Vancouver real estate. And the city of Vancouver also conducted a study to see how many empty homes we have. And it turned out we have a 5% vacancy or a 5% rate of empty homes in the city of Vancouver, which is quite normal for a city of the size. There works to be about 10,800 homes. But of course, our mayor did announce that he will be taking measures to tackle the issue of empty homes, as Vancouver is quite an expensive city. In April, we saw analysts predicting strong growth right throughout the end of 2018. That was based on the hot spring market we had. And of course, the city also announced 300 new under market priced homes announced to tackle affordability in some way. In May, we saw new rules on assignments. So now we've got rules right across the board, not just on realtors, but essentially any buyer. If you're looking to flip a property for profit, it's essentially impossible. We now have a new standard clause in our contract of purchase and sales, which disallow that function. So you can sell a property not for profit. If you do sell for profit before you complete on the property, that money goes to the seller. Outlets also started reporting on a backlash of millennials who are saying they want to leave the city. They don't want to essentially live in Vancouver anymore because of affordability issues. And we also had stories of millennials citing quite the opposite, saying yes, they do want to live in the city, but they have to have some solutions to affordability. In June, condo prices started to slow. They didn't quite drop yet, but they did start to slow. The mayor also announced that he will be imposing a property vacancy tax with or without the provincial government's assistance. And also, industry self-regulation was ended. So the Real Estate Council of British Columbia is to be overhauled. It's no longer to be self-regulated. And there will be essentially an assignment through government for regulation of the real estate industry. Finally, in that month, we also saw the federal government announcing, both the finance minister and the governor of the Bank of Canada announcing that Vancouver and Toronto are seeing red-hot markets, overheated markets, and announcing that they will be coming up with some measures to try and cool those markets in the coming months, which we saw later in the fall. In July, for the first time ever, we saw condo prices decrease over the course of this calendar year. We also saw, and this is the biggest headline of the year, a 15% foreign buyer tax introduced, which was a complete 180-degree spin that the government made, the provincial government, because prior to that, they had mentioned that they will not be intervening with the market. Yet now they have. Now, the 15% foreign buyer tax in August created a huge emotional response. Many participants in the market, both buyers and sellers, decided to just hold off and sit on the sidelines to see how the market will respond to this massive new tax on foreign buyers. And indeed, we did see quite a massive slowdown in the month of August. It was based on a very emotional response to this new policy. With that, we also saw some collateral damage. And that is, of course, individuals that are foreigners but are working in a city, who are earning a fair living, being sort of caught in this foreign buyer tax, not being able to complete on purchases that they committed to prior to this tax being announced. In September, we saw a class action lawsuit launched against the provincial government for this same reason. September also started seeing a stabilization of condo prices on the west side of Vancouver. In October, we returned back to a price increase for the first time in the fall for condos on the west side of Vancouver, but we also saw the introduction of a federal policy that is a new stress test on buyers that are high ratio, which means that if you have less than 20% down payment, you now have to go through a very rigorous qualification process to qualify for your loan amounts, essentially. And the backlash with that was, of course, that those that typically would have lower down payments, essentially first-time home buyers, entry-level participants in the market, now cannot afford as much as they could have previously, which is just going to possibly lock them out of the market. The National Bank of Canada also predicted a decrease in the year of 2017 for condo prices in Canada. In November, we saw a year-over-year increase of 14.5% of condo prices. That's still a huge, massive increase. And we also saw, of course, the U.S. elections for their new president, which indirectly does affect us because we are directly tied to our neighbors in the South, and whatever happens in the South can affect our economy up north, which of course can trickle down to a micro market of real estate here in Vancouver to a certain extent. We also saw rental vacancy rates dropping even further, so it's even hard to find rentals in Vancouver. Now, that's sort of a very high-level quick summary of 2016 and the headlines. If you have any specific questions about these, please do get in touch with me. Now, before we leave this video, before we end the year on this video, I want to talk about some of the numbers as we do. So right on your screen right now, what you see is the Metro Vancouver regional map, and that's showing you the year increase of prices right across the board, going from exactly a year ago, so November 2015, up until the latest numbers for November 2016. And on the west side of Vancouver, we saw a 17% increase. Now, how did we reach these massive numbers? Going from January until November, we saw an overall increase of 14.5% this year. That rate was actually 16.5% going from January until July. Then from July down to October, we saw a decrease in 2.6%. And the last month, we did see roughly a 1% increase. So it seems like the market is starting to stabilize again. And we do predict that going into at least the spring of 2017. But of course, only time will tell. And that's why we want to keep studying these numbers. Finally, talking about absorption rates, so that's seeing whether we're in a buyer's or seller's market. We are still in the seller's market. Anything above 19%, that is a seller's market. And we've been hovering in that territory for at least the last 2 years. But looking specifically at the last sort of 11 months, in March, we were at a 98% absorption. We dropped down to 54% at the low point in September, and now we're back at 75%. So we're still in a strong seller's market. However, the market does seem to be stabilizing. So that is it. That's the video for 2016. I want to take this time to, of course, say thank you for watching these videos and supporting me and listening to what I have to share. If this is your first video, you can see more. We do post every week, and you can do so by liking our Facebook page. Now, if you have any specific questions, if you have thoughts of buying or selling 2017, I hope you do get in touch with me. You can do so by calling or texting number right below. And for now, I'll wish you a very happy and safe New Year's Eve. Until this time next week, bye-bye.